You ever have a moment that just replays in your head, but it's not the shouting, not the chaos. It's the small sound, the scrape of rubber soles on a courtroom floor, echoing in a space that feels like it's already decided what you are before you even get a chance to say it. That's what I remember most from that morning, that soft shuffle as they brought Amira Dawson in, hands cuffed in front of her face, already split at the lip, and everyone looking everywhere except at her. They said she was a threat. They said she caused a scene at the mall, interfered with police work. But really what landed her in that busted-up courtroom on a Wednesday was her filming Officer Travis Beckett shoving an old black man to the ground, no warning, no reason, just force. Amira didn't run, she didn't scream, she did what no one else would do. She took out her phone and pressed record. That's what made them decide she needed to be put in her place. She wasn't dragged in with any drama. It was just quiet, the kind of quiet that lets you know the room's already decided and you can almost hear their thoughts. She doesn't belong. She should have stayed invisible. Beckett stood by the witness table, arms crossed, jaw tight, shooting her the kind of look that says he's certain nothing bad will happen to him. Amira didn't meet his eyes, just sat there with her public defender, a young guy who looked about 2 weeks out of law school, flipping through her file like he was searching for hope and only finding empty pages. When Beckett started walking over slow and deliberate, I thought maybe he was going to hand something to the judge. But he stopped right at her, leaned down, whispered something none of us could hear, and then without warning slapped her. The sound cracked through the room, bouncing off peeling paint and broken clocks. And no one moved. Not the judge, not the bailiff, not even her own attorney. It wasn't confusion, it was something worse, indifference. I glanced up at Judge Roland Keene, expecting him to slam the gavel or shout, but he just stared at his paperwork like he was balancing his checkbook. Amira just turned her head back, slow, wiped her bloody lip with her cuffed hands, and said clear as day, "You just made it federal." 5 words, soft but heavier than anything Beckett could have thrown. He took a step back, not because anyone told him to, but because that kind of quiet certainty rattles even the most arrogant. And then in the back row, a woman adjusted her watch. That's all one smooth, practiced gesture, but somehow it shifted the whole room. She hadn't gasped when Amira was hit, didn't flinch, just sat there, calm eyes, unreadable, like she'd come for this exact moment. The balance of power felt like it rearranged itself, and suddenly I realized none of us were watching the story we thought we were. Something bigger was brewing. After the slap, everything moved again, but not in the way you'd hope. Beckett went back to the stand, straightened his badge, and started spinning his version. Amira, he claimed, was aggressive, combative, interfered with an arrest. He spoke slow, practiced, confident the system would cover him. The prosecutor, Eliza Mathers, sat with her legs crossed and barely glanced at her notes. Didn't ask a single question. Just nodded like she was already on to the next case. Judge Keene scribbled something into the docket, handed it off, never looked at Amira. Her lawyer, Riley Tran, shifted in his seat, cleared his throat, looked like he wanted to say something but shut his mouth. Maybe he was too new. Maybe he'd seen how these things played out and figured no one would listen. All the while, the woman in the back row wrote notes by hand, slow and steady, like she was recording history while the rest of us pretended nothing was happening. And still no one saw her, except maybe Amira. The blood dried on her lips. She didn't move, didn't ask to speak. But there was a weight in the silence that made you feel she was about to do something none of us could predict. The lights buzzed overhead, the old clock still broken, and I realized I was holding my breath, hoping for a break in the script. Finally, Riley stood up, voice shaking but determined, asked to submit new evidence. Civilian video from across the street, time-stamped, showing Beckett shoving the old man and Amira stepping in. The clerk set up the monitor. The judge looked bored. The ADA hardly paid attention. But on screen, clear as day, Amira didn't attack, didn't yell. She just stood as a barrier between a man with a cane and a cop with a badge. When the video ended, the judge waved it off, unverified, not legal evidence, move on. Riley tried to argue, but the judge cut him off. Mathers gave a tiny smile and said, Nice footage doesn't mean anything in court. The screen went dark, and so did the hope in the room. Beckett leaned back to whisper to his buddy, Officer Dean Harlow, something sharp and cold. She won't last long. It wasn't about the case anymore. It was about breaking her. But Amira didn't flinch. Her eyes never left that blank monitor. And behind her, the woman in the back row, Lorraine Pierce, as I'd find out, just narrowed her eyes, touched her watch again, deliberate like she was marking time. Nobody else seemed to notice, but you could feel something being set in motion. Suddenly, Harlow came in with a slip of paper for a standard evidence check on Amira's belongings. No one questioned it. Beckett joined in. Riley tried to protest. Mathers cut him off. They're doing their job. The officers emptied Amira's bag, scattering homework photos, a sandwich-colored pencils, treating it all like debris. When they finished, Amira, still cuffed, calmly picked up every piece, folded her sandwich, gathered her things, and zipped her bag, her hand shaking just once. Lorraine tapped her watch, 2 sharp clicks, barely noticeable. But to those who know, a signal had been sent. Amira slid a note to Riley, tiny, careful handwriting. "Don't act, they're watching. I'm ready." Riley glanced at her wrist, spotted the thick, matte black watch. Not a kid's gadget, but agency equipment. He whispered, "Who's watching?" For the first time, Amira looked him in the eye, then turned toward the gallery to Lorraine. Their eyes met, nothing spoken, but everything understood, a quiet electric connection. Then Beckett leaned forward and hissed, "No one's here for you, not even your mother." Before the poison of that could sink in, a chair scraped the floor. Lorraine Pierce stood. The whole back row turned. She walked down the aisle, steady, unhurried. Judge Keene tried to call her back, but his voice wavered. She stepped into the open, pulled a small black case from her blazer, flipped it open, flashing a federal badge. The silence changed instantly. She announced, calm and clear, Agent Lorraine Pierce, Central Intelligence Agency, Division of Internal Oversight. Nobody moved. The judge froze. Mathers dropped her pen. Beckett and Harlow stiffened, and Amira, still cuffed, didn't even look surprised. Lorraine read from a folder detailing Beckett's prior brutality. Harlow's evidence tampering, Mathers' pattern of declining prosecution. Keene's history of silencing complaints. All 3 cases, she said, were scheduled for judicial review in this courthouse. All 3 were denied the chance to be heard. Mathers sputtered that it wasn't relevant. Lorraine didn't blink. Covering crimes is always relevant. She placed a federal order on the clerk's desk, authorization for immediate detainment. 2 agents entered. Cuffed Beckett and Harlow marched them out. No resistance, just stunned silence, broken only by a scattered gasp, a whisper, the sound of a room remembering how to breathe. Riley stood, voice steady. "Now, Your Honor, I request the video be submitted again, certified by federal authority." This time, nobody objected. The video played the old man, the shove, Amira stepping in, arms out. The silence that followed was thick with realization. Lorraine spoke again. "This isn't justice. It's damage control. What you just saw wasn't a mistake. It was the system until someone refused to move. And people stood. Not all at once, not for protest, but one by one, until half the gallery was on their feet, silent but refusing to look away. Amira sat uncuffed now, steady, not small at all. She walked out with Lorraine. No applause, just the quiet rhythm of their footsteps echoing against the stone. Outside, a little girl stared at Amira and asked, "Why didn't you fight back?" Amira let the silence settle, then said, "Because sometimes silence isn't fear, it's strategy." By that afternoon, those words had already spread. Teachers wrote them on whiteboards, grandmothers posted them beneath family photos, activists added them to murals. Amira's name trended not for spectacle, but because her silence had made the world listen. Inside, Mathers resigned quietly. Keene faced an ethics inquiry, and Beckett and Harlow spent the night in holding cells, finally learning that sometimes silence means no one's coming back. At home, Amira sat in Lorraine's living room. No TV, no phone, just stillness, shoulder to shoulder. Outside, people planted signs. Accountability begins here. They shared the video, sent it to daughters, printed its last line. To every girl told to sit down, you were always meant to rise. So, yeah, maybe justice doesn't always shout. Maybe it doesn't even have to. Sometimes it just stands up and changes the room. If you felt anything from this story about truth, about quiet strength, about the kind of courage that doesn't need to be loud, share your thoughts below. Where does justice begin for you? What would you have done in that room? I want to know.
Xin chào các bạn, mình là Trinh, mình phụ trách viết content. Trên đây là những công việc của mình là mình
Vamos supor, você falou negócio sério.
It is cold, yeah.
Next one? Alright. Thank you, man. Hey, if you guys have any trouble, let somebody know. Please.
After the tree to hold on to.
Yeah, you're the fence.